Rentals is the largest online rental provider for photography, videography, and lighting equipment and accessories in the United States. They carry camera bodies and lenses in every format from every major manufacturer and all the audio, lighting, and support accessories needed to cover any kind of shoot, from a family holiday card to a commercial advertising job. All equipment purchased is sold within 2 years, so customers are assured their stock is always in like-new condition. Right now, when you use the code RODIE15 to check out, you get 15% off your entire order. That's RODIE15 over at lensrentals.com.
What's happening, roadies? This is Sahir Hanif.
What's happening, roadies? This is Kim Watson.
What's happening, roadies? This is Graham Mellor, and you're listening to Roadie Free Radio.
What's up, roadies? My name is Larry Milburn, and this is Roadie Free Radio, your VIP pass to meet and greet the stars behind the scenes of the music and film business. All right. What is happening, roadies? Welcome back. This is episode 167 of Roadie Free Radio. This is your host, Larry Milburn, and I am coming at you from a barn in Northwest Connecticut. Happy 420 2020. That is some deep 420 action. What is going on, friends? How are you doing today, this week, this month? Oh my goodness, it is crazy times. Hey, first up, our guest today and this week is Mr. Graham Mellor, production manager, monitor engineer, front of house engineer, great dude from Rhode Island. Good times. We had a great chat. That will be coming up later in the show. First of all, for those of you that have been leaving iTunes reviews and comments and whatnot, can I just thank you? Because it means a lot. It's been awesome to see some of the response to the show over the years. We are coming in to our 4th year of doing Roadie Free Radio. I cannot believe it. It's the middle of May when that happens, and got to do something to celebrate. 4-year anniversary. I mean, my goodness. Wow. So anyway, thank you guys so much for all of your support. To all you returning listeners, you know I love you. If you're new to the show, if you're just stopping by, we go deep behind the scenes. We bring you the stories from the folks on the front lines of the music and film industry, and with a focus on the live touring professional, because they are the ones that make it happen. And so, welcome to the show. Welcome to the party. Thanks for bringing your positive, lovely attitude. We've got some birthday shout outs like we normally do. Singer-songwriter John O'Manson, happy birthday to you. This next one's a special one. Orly Sidowitz, all the way in Hollywood, California, is a casting director who gave me some of my first breaks when I was an actor in LA many, many moons ago. Orly, it's your birthday. I love you. Thank you so much. She coined the term with me. One day I was doing extra work. We're going off the path here, but why not? That's what we do on the show. I was doing some extra work on the show Felicity. One day, had to just trying to get my SAG card, and Orly was in my corner. She was trying to get me some gigs, and she paged me. That's back when they had pagers, man. She paged me while I was on set at Felicity. She said, "Larry, what are you doing? What the fuck's going on?" She was like to swear. She liked to drop F-bombs, which I appreciated. "What are you doing? What the fuck's going on?" I said, "I'm doing some extra work, trying to get my SAG card." She about flipped out on me, and she's like, "Are you out of your mind? Do you want to be an extra or do you want to be an actor, Larry? What's it going to be? Because I've got an audition for you." Meanwhile, folks, I went on her audition. I walked off the set of Felicity, did the audition, got the part. It got me my SAG card. Boom. I was in the Sonny and Cher movie that came out in like 1998, 1999, something like that. And that started me on the path. So Orly Sidowitz, I love you. Happy birthday. We've also got happy birthday shout outs to Terrence Yoshiaki and Mr. Jim Runge. So happy birthday to everybody. You know, if I missed you, it's just because you didn't pop up in the Facebook feed. That's where I get most of my birthday love from. So anyway, I love all of you. The Corona is happening, still going on. Looks like things may let up at some point in the next, month. We're looking at a month. If you're in Connecticut, we've just been told that by tonight of April 20th, you have to wear a face mask now to go out in public, do all that stuff. So I got my bandana. I don't have an actual face mask, but I got a bandana. I'm going to work with that. And I just want to drop a little something on you guys. It's not so much of a rant. I'm going to try to keep it short, but here's the thing. I was telling a friend of mine who was lamenting everything going on. He's a talented guy. He's a smart guy. And he was like, I'm just depressed about everything and this and that. And I was like, dude, you got a way to make income online. And that's true. He does. You are not like thousands, the hundreds of thousands of people who have lost their job, who are probably going to lose their home and stuff like that. You've got an ability to do stuff right now and to make a little money. And so this is just a little bit of a pep talk. And what I told him was this thing, this Corona thing, it's going to end. It's going to be over. And we're going to be left with, did we do anything? What did we do during this time? Did we sit around with our heads in our laps? And I get it, man. Times are tough. I totally get it. But it's going to be over. What did you do at this time? Are you going to be ready to ride the wave on out of here? Or are you going to find yourself in the same position you were before everything started? Now's the time. Take advantage. Again, I understand. People are hurting. People are down in the trenches. But you've got some time right now. Figure out what's working for you, figure out what's not working, fix those things that aren't working. On this show with Graham, we talk about, and in these interviews that you've been hearing the last couple of weeks, while we've been dealing with this stuff, I've been asking people, what are the systems that have been working for you? Where did you see things start falling apart as this pandemic took over? What did it expose? What were the weaknesses? Strengths and weaknesses. That's what we talk about, people. TorHealth.org. Have you taken the survey, guys? Head over, Tor Health Research Initiative. They are doing a really good thing. When this does come back, they're going to want to know how this affected you. So head over to TorHealth.org. Take the survey. Give them some meat, some stuff to work with. I also want to let you guys know, as you've heard, Crew Nation through Live Nation has offered a lot of cash, and I'm going to read you their thing. I reached out to them and I asked them, what can I do? And basically I can just keep being a mouthpiece for this and put it out. I did, however, buy a $65 sweatshirt that says Crew on it. Pretty cool looking sweatshirt. I got that coming. That's a donation. And I gave him $50. It's the most I can do right now. And it felt good. It felt good to support my people, which are basically you people that's listening. So anyway, Crew Nation, if you head over to livenationentertainment.com/Crew Nation, you will learn all about this stuff. Here we go. This is what it is. Crew members are the backbone of our industry. Yeah, no shit. With COVID-19 putting concerts on pause, Live Nation is extending a helping hand by creating the Crew Nation Fund, a global relief fund for live music crews. Live Nation is matching all donations dollar for dollar up to $5 million. Now, let me just clarify that. Overall, they're going to give $10 million. They're giving $5 million of their own dollars, as they should, frankly. But above that, they are going to match dollar for dollar all donations up to $5 million. So there's an opportunity here for $10 million to go. We've seen, oh man, the last couple of days, we have seen how shitty and politically influenced the federal stimulus thing is and where that's gone, right? Ruth's Chris, they need $20 million to help keep them going, but the mom and pop shop down the street's going to fold because someone's got to eat their goddamn steak. All right, sorry, I know everyone wants a steak. Don't worry about it. Okay, in order to provide assistance to those who have already experienced some financial impact due to this intermission, applications are being accepted in phases based on when shows were originally scheduled to play. Applications are now open for anyone who has been financially impacted from shows originally scheduled to take place in March or April 2020. The deadline to submit an application is Friday, May 1st, people. Friday, May 1st is the deadline to submit an application to get some cash money from Crew Nation, from Live Nation, okay? There is a link in the show notes. Again, I'm going to say it, though, here in case you're driving and you're thinking about it. livenationentertainment.com/Crew Nation. You can get some merch. You can apply. or you can donate. Do it all. Support the crew out there. One other group that is out there helping to do things is Support Crew, or they're known as Support Live Music Crews. This is founded by Charles Twilling and Mindy Larkin. They have worked many years in the music industry on the production side. In these scary and trying times, they are just looking to do what they can to help our brothers and sisters in production, okay? They want to have all their links in one space to make it easier to get the word out on all venues, bands, and production companies. You can follow these guys over at Support Crew on Instagram or Support Crew on Facebook. All right, they got a Facebook page, they got an Instagram page. It's a very cool thing. Charles Twilling's been on the show. I'm looking to put together some other kind of a thing to get a few voices into an episode. Been busy. Lots going on over here at the Milburn house. So we're going to try to do that. So check out Support Crew. Check out Crew Nation. It's a big help. Those of you joining the show, you might not really know what a roadie is, what a roadie does, any of that good stuff. If you are one of those people and you want to find out, check out a film called Roadie, My Documentary. TJ Hoffman is the filmmaker behind said film. He was a roadie for many years. He got into trouble with the drugs and the alcohol and the rock and roll lifestyle, cleaned himself up, got out of the biz, kept a lot of his contacts and a lot of his family intact, made a killer documentary about what it means to be a roadie. You can check out his film at roadiemydocumentary.com and learn a whole hell of a lot of good stuff. If you are feeling down in the dumps or you just need a little pick-me-up, guys, check out the book, The PMA Effect by John Joseph. It is an attitude adjustment for these times. It will help you get through, I promise you. Hey, we are also sponsored today by Boulevard Carroll Productions. Whether you've got productions, rehearsals, installations that are needed, they've got an expert staff and state-of-the-art equipment no matter the size of your production. From rehearsal to curtain, they've got you covered. Check out boulevardcarroll.com. When this thing kicks back, man, you are going to be a traveling roadie, live touring professional. Head over to boulevardcarroll.com. Get yourself some work. Get out on the road. They do backline. They do all the stuff. Beautiful spot. Yo, we are also sponsored today by airturn.com. Any of you out there that are currently looking into doing some live streaming stuff, you want to beef up your live stream situation, listen, man, since 2008, AirTurn has been manufacturing wireless products such as Bluetooth pedals and multifunction remotes, supporting hundreds and thousands of customers in over 40 countries. They have a wide range of products to choose from, including the AirTurn Go Stand. You know it's my favorite portable mic stand on the market. I use it on the show on a regular basis when I'm traveling. Head over to airturn.com. Use the code ROADIE to save 10% off your entire order. That's ROADIE to save 10% off your entire order over at airturn.com. Everything I'm talking about, there are links in the show notes on this page, so head over to the website, roadiefreeradio.com, and you can find everything on this particular episode. All right, I mentioned at the top, my guest this week is Mr. Graham Mellor. First, got to give a shout out to Jason Greenberg again for hooking me up with this interview. Good times, good stuff. Graham is a Rhode Island native. We had a good chat. He stood out on his porch. It was a blustery day, and we did this thing via the Skyper, and good dude. We had a good time. We do talk about the corona and, again, how it's affected his company, Sound Advice, and how he started Sound Advice and got into all that. And, again, just how it's exposed some strengths and weaknesses, what it's like to carry some overhead, albeit a small overhead in his case. But, you know, he's got some employees, man, and how that weighs on him. How he started out in a small production company, local sound company called PMA Industries. Oh, look at that. I just caught that. PMA, Positive Mental Attitude, was the book I talked about just a few short seconds ago. There's no relation there. I just thought that was an interesting thing. He did sound for the Temptations. He moved on, worked at a nightclub called FET, which was a 1,000-cap nightclub in Providence. Started rocking and rolling over there. Very quickly moved on to be the production manager and went on to work with the Knitting Factory, who booked that venue for several years as well. He has worked with Sturgill, Simpson, Willie Nelson, Outlaw Music Fest, Warren Haynes, Gov't Mule, a whole bunch of super cool people. I think you're going to dig this episode. I certainly enjoyed talking to Graham myself. Graham has got a fantastic red beard, and he's going to need a little bit of this stuff as time goes on. Show Pro Beard Co. is another one of our sponsors. It was created by Chris Wilson, who is also known as the Audio Wizard. He is a live audio engineer with a hell of a beard. All you bearded guys out there, I got a stubbly little thing, stubbly little beard. It ain't nothing special, but I do love this product, and I do use it because it smells good. It makes me feel good. Anyway, look, he's created his very own unique formula of beard balm that not only performs well in terms of health and nourishment, it also provides the control, shine, and pleasant aroma that any bearded professional would appreciate. These are non-waxy, all-natural beard balms that will leave your beard soft, smooth, and nourished. Choose from a variety of natural smelling scents like Home Sweet Home, Morning Wood, Through the Woods, Chain Motor Oil, and of course they've got original unscented. Now, use the code RODIE at showprobeardco.com. You get yourself 20% off your entire order. That's RODIE to get 20% off your entire order, and by doing so, you are also helping Chris in this time by supporting him and what he's doing. So there you go. It's good stuff. All right, enough jibber jabber schmabberly baps. Let's get to the show, man, with Mr. Graham Mellor.
Hit it. Call yourself a roadie. Call yourself a roadie. Call yourself a roadie.
Larry.
Happy belated, by the way.
Thank you so much. Much appreciated.
Welcome. Of course, man. Of course. I like to go in there and scour and find people's birthdays, try to brighten up their day just a little bit.
Well, this year needed a little bit of brightening, being as I was on home confinement. Although my roommate got me a cake, it was nice. So
that's nice.
Can't complain.
Did
I can't complain.
Make the cake, or did they?
No, I don't think. No.
Okay.
It was a Carvel ice cream cake though, so it was.
Oh, that's a bonus.
Absolutely.
Curbside Carvel, can't beat that.
Yep.
Nice, dude. So Graham, man, I'm super psyched to have you on. I know we lost the thread on this like probably a year ago or something, and right when I first reached out. So.
Oh yeah, yep.
Life gets a little kooky, man. I wanted to jump in with sort of the first thing to be about Sound Advice. And, you mentioned yesterday you were applying for the SBA loan like so many other people have done. I did it a couple of days ago. I'm just curious, how things are working out for you right now. I'm sure you had a bunch of gigs lined up. And I guess ultimately, how long was Sound Advice been around? See, I've been geeking out on camera gear and I was looking at Shit.
We started, I started the business sort of as a gas in 2015. I had been working, actually said 2013, but we incorporated in 2015. I'd been working at a nightclub in Providence called FET. And unfortunately, we had gone through a series of party bus incidences where they bring in buses from out of state full of people.
Yeah.
And so we were getting a lot of sort of negative press because of the incidents that were occurring from that. So I had been doing some mixing for Waterfire, which is a big outdoor art installation in the city of Providence. They do bi-weekly. There's two rivers that converge in Providence, and they put up art installations along it. And I was handling the live music at the jazz stage and a couple other places and doing some things. And people kept asking for my card, and I would hand them my business card from the venue that I worked, and people would go like, "Oh, geez, this FET, yeah, I saw them in the news." So I printed up a blank white business card with block letters that said Graham Mellor Sound Advice and my phone number as a joke. And I love to hand it to people because I'd hand it to them and I'd watch them look at it and they go, Jesus. Yeah. And so then people started writing checks to me as Sound Advice. So I was like, oh man. So I had to incorporate the business in 2015. So we're sort of a unique little business up here in Rhode Island, being that we don't do AV. We don't really do a lot of competitive bidding against other companies in the area. It's a really dense market. You're in the Northeast, so yeah. I'm sure you can relate. It's a really dense market. We're close to Boston, so there's a lot of companies, and there's a lot of established companies that are really, really great. Scorpio, Gary King, and Berkston Music. We do a little bit of backline, so we sub-rent from Berkston a lot. So competitive is not in my wheelhouse. What we do is we go into venues and we put sound systems in venues and we staff them and we handle the production needs of the venues. So we have sound systems installed at the Greenwich Odeum in East Greenwich, Rhode Island, which is a 400-seater, and one at the Columbus Theater in Providence, which is an 800-seater. And then we also do a lot of the audio for Waterfire, which is, depending on the year, can be extravagant or it can be minimal depending on the donations. It's a nonprofit arts organization. So, so for us, we had a large calendar of work because we're in the venues and we're staffing it and we're handling all that stuff. Yeah. In a matter of days, we went from, shows booked out solidly through August in 2 of those venues to absolutely nothing. So it's been a little bit of a challenge. Thankfully, we're really committed to keeping our overhead low because we're not buying to compete with other people. It's buying projectors and buying screens. We keep our inventory very streamlined. We have the same stuff in every location, and we've managed to keep our overhead low. So it's not a dire situation for us, awesome. except for the freelancers. It's a situation where a lot of our guys, because we balloon up in the spring and summertime, and we rather the winter time, and then we don't do too much in the summer because the venues are closed. We were kind of going into our busy season of the spring. So all of our freelance guys lost a lot of work. My shop guy lost a lot of work. So it's been unfortunate in that regard.
All right. So wait, lots to bite off and all of that.
Yes. Sorry, but you can stop me at any time.
No. It's good. It's good, man. I love it. Just to back up for a second. Yes, obviously the touring industry is getting crushed or it's gotten crushed and folks like you that own these production companies crushed. Can you imagine, Joe, just for a second, being the owner of a party bus company? Like, who is going to get on a bus in September, October, November, and want to be around 30 people on a fucking bus now? Nobody. In the best of times, owning a party bus, and excuse me for saying this, and I hope none of the listeners are party bus owners, in the best of times, party bus owners are sleaze bags. And so it's to like imagine a roving porn shop.
It's ugly. It's beautiful, but it's ugly.
Yeah.
But imagine the tricks and the stunts that they're gonna have to try to pull to rake in any sort of money when that comes back around again. I for one, it's been a long time since I operated in a nightclub, thankfully, and I did it in Providence for a little while, to be not on the road, and I had a great time. But one of my least favorite things in the world was those party buses. They're just a danger to people. They're a danger to humanity.
Yeah, but it's got to be, if you're sitting out there, sleazy or not, right? You're sitting out there looking at your fleet of buses, and no one's getting on a bus for a while. Yeah, no, absolutely. And to speak to that, the tour bus companies, owning a tour bus. What do they say about the tour bus business? How do you make a small fortune with tour buses? You start with a large fortune. So just imagining, Pioneer and Celebrity and Senator and all these companies with, who are buying up brand new coaches, because last year you couldn't get, and the year before, to speak to that, you couldn't get a coach to save your life. So with these guys building coaches in the off season, prepping for the summertime and having the rug pulled out from underneath them is it's devastating. It's almost like this whole business. Somebody had told me recently, somebody from Live Nation, that this is a $337 billion business, all told, the music business. Sure. And I just visualized a $337 billion bicycle driving down the street and some dick coming out with a stick and just sticking it in the spokes. And that's what I feel like happened. Yeah.
I wish I could draw, because I draw that picture.
I like that picture. That's a pretty good one. You should get on that, man.
I got plenty of time to learn to draw. So.
Yeah, right. We've all got a lot of time. All right. So So you're able to sort of scale up, scale down. You've kept your overhead low this whole time. You're not trying to compete with the big guys. You sort of know your lane. You didn't go into this with rose-colored glasses thinking you're going to be, a Claire Brothers, let's say, to compete on that level type of a thing, or these other companies in Boston. So those are systems and I guess philosophies that you put in place early on. As a business owner, though, how does it feel to shoulder the responsibility of those freelancers? And then, of course, you've got your own right? Your own thing.
Yeah. I mean, I was out, I was production managing Sturgill Simpson and Tyler Childers arena tour. We were 3 weeks into a 3.5 month run of shows, and we were on 2 days off in Virginia Beach, and the tour was pulled. I mean, not that we couldn't see it coming, for the week and a half that sort of led up to that happened. And it was obviously the right move, but, I didn't sleep a lot when I came home. I hadn't been sleeping for the week before. It's a tremendous responsibility. There's 2 guys that work in my shop. I mean, basically everyone in my shop. No, everyone in my shop is a part-timer or a freelancer in some way, just the nature of the business. And because we're not moving a tremendous amount of gear. But Matt, who's I call him my shop foreman. He's still a freelance dude, but he does a lot of work for me. Probably 50% of his income comes from me. And the other 50% comes from freelancing in the summertime for various other people. I take the responsibility of the people who work for me either on the road or at home very, very seriously. And it stinks because, there's not much we can do. I was able to shell out a little bit of money to a couple of the guys that work for me and say, here's a week. And, it's unfortunately the best I can do. It's just, it's awful. And I can't imagine being Troy, Claire, or Ken Porter down at Spectrum Audio. I can't imagine all those guys that have, a fleet of people who are working for them full time, or Eric Todd at BML Blackbird. In New Jersey. I was speaking with him the other day that, the shop, it's dead stop. And that's gotta, I know what it's like for me with a small shop and how much it weighs on me. And I can't imagine what it's like for the big guys, for the owners at Solitech or companies like that, and how much this must be killing them.
They must be able to absorb a bit more though than a shop like yours, or even a mid-level shop, right? For a bit.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
A bit.
Yeah. And I guess, it's all about how long it goes on for, And, we looked at an initial projection when I first came home of being shut down for 4 weeks. And now most of my shows locally here, to speak to Sound Advice only, the shows are basically canceled out till September. So, I'm looking at having, the guys who I was responsible financially for, and like I say to people who don't pay their bills with me, I say, there are kids who have swimming lessons that they need to go to. There's kids that have T-ball that they need to pay for. And I feel responsible for that. And I'm sure every single small production company owner feels the same way about their employees and their freelancers. And it's tough. I'm taking a little false solace, I'll put it that way, in the fact that everyone's in the same situation. And hopefully with these, in Rhode Island, and I'm not sure what it's like nationwide, but I know at least in Rhode Island, they've opened up unemployment to 1099 subcontractors and gig workers and freelancers.
Nice.
So that's been a huge relief, and it's got not a wonderful weekly maximum, but a pretty good one. I think it's $600 weekly.
Yeah.
So at least there'll be some relief for those 1099 guys and the jobbers that, that we have a freelance list of about 15 people that work for us pretty regularly throughout the year. And those guys are working for another, they're working at Lupo's, they're working at the Met, they're working for, overhire at Local 23, which is a stagehand union here. So, it's tough. It's tough. So.
I wanted to ask you real quick, man, because I was reading about, was Rhode Island, you guys had the National Guard, and I heard there was a whole thing where the National Guard and your state troopers were going door to door looking for New Yorkers. Was that true?
Yeah. So, interestingly enough, I actually crossed the border in a rental car the day after they initiated that order, and I didn't, and there was nobody at the border.
Okay.
that, Rhode Island is, and I'm sure it may be like this in Connecticut. You're not terribly far away, probably a couple hours from me. Westerly, Rhode Island, Charleston, Rhode Island, Newport, Rhode Island, Jamestown, there are a lot of summer homes.
Yeah.
There are a lot of New York summer homes. And it wasn't so much, the media really blew it up to have Gina Raimondo, our governor, versus Cuomo. And it was like a big sort of, headbutting. I got to remember that when I'm making head movements, that no one's going to be able to see this video conference. And I laughed about it because it makes a lot of sense. There's a lot of, quote unquote, New York money that comes to Rhode Island in the summertime. Yeah. And people, and I can understand, I drove straight through New York City on my way home from Nashville, and the Cross Bronx Expressway, there were 3 cars and 1 semi at 11 o'clock at night. Wow. And that was the end of March, and that's unheard of. Yeah. So I'm sure it's frightening and it's scary. I spoke to one of the guys from Sturgill's management team who lives in Long Island yesterday, and he was saying he hasn't left the house, in 3 weeks, basically. So it was funny that thing got blown up, but it was really about just making sure that the people who did cross the border or own property here knew that they had to stay in their houses, and I think that was Gina's big thing, was just protecting, everybody, including those people that crossed the border. I really loved watching the governor of New York say that he was going to sue Rhode Island over the whole thing. We have Rhode Islanders we're the smallest state, but we have this really huge thing about pride. Yeah. We go back to the Boston Tea Party where they're like, they weren't paying, you have to pay extra taxes on the tea. So we threw their tea into the bay. Well, Rhode Island, we just burned British tax ships in the bay, and we still have parades, the Gaspee Day Parade. We still have parades celebrating that. So we really love controversy up here, and we're really like, sue us, go ahead.
Right, bring it on.
Come on, you lousy New Yorkers.
Yeah, right. So, well, we have that too up here. I'm in an area called Litchfield County, above Danbury.
Oh yeah, okay.
Right above Fairfield County there, and we have a lot of second, third home owners from the city and elsewhere and whatnot, and the gripe here is that you go, there's a lot of hiking trails and that kind of thing. And, you go to our local hiking trails to get out, and it's packed. The parking lots are packed right now. Even some of the great walks on some of the side streets, away from the main roads, there are people out with their dogs. A lot of neighbors put up pick up after your dog, curb your dog signs and shit you would normally not see. Oh, wow. They're out and they're up and people in groups. Now, you don't know if they're families or not coming at you, but, it's just wow, okay, you feel the flux, or you see the big, Escalade out in front of our little market, and dudes coming out with a shopping cart just overloaded. But at the same time, they are supporting the economy.
Yeah,
it's a tough thing, and those same people support our economy in the summer and in the fall through leaf peeping season and stuff like that. So it's a strange balance to strike, but when something like this happens, and everyone's already looking at you through their side eye, don't get too fucking close, man. Or you go to the market. I'm sure it's the same where you guys are, right? There's a lot of face mask wearing and gloves. And
absolutely.
If you're not one of those people wearing it, you definitely get the look of keep your distance.
Yeah, and I live next to a state park, Goddard State Park here in Rhode Island, and there's still people out walking around. But until they closed the park system a week ago, you'd drive through the park and there'd be people out with picnicking with 20 people. It's what the hell are you guys thinking? What are you thinking? Yeah. This isn't party time, and it's funny. You talk about the New York people supporting the economy. It's a big deal up here. East Greenwich, which is the town right next to where I live. There's a lot of doctors, lawyers. There's a lot of out-of-state money that comes. There's a lot of great restaurants, a lot of great places to go in the town, and a lot of them wouldn't survive if it's not for the summertime business that gets done by the out-of-state people that come in, the tourism. Sure. And so it's I own a small business. I'm a practicing economist, or as I like to say, I commit commerce a lot. It's hard to balance I need you, but get away from me. I was, it's almost like the New Yorkers, I was good enough for you when you wanted your money, but now that I need shelter from a humanitarian aspect and I need to get my family safe, now you don't want me. Right. And I think that was probably where Cuomo was coming from, but like you said, it's all about safety, and people are side-eyeing you, and civic responsibility, I guess, would be the only thing that I could think of is just keep your masks on, people.
What we talked about some of the strengths, I guess, of the business inherent in how you sort of thought out your mission in starting Sound Advice. How is this thing exposed some weaknesses in your operation, if you are willing to discuss?
It's definitely, I guess as far as like avenues of, the people that I know that right now that are still able to leave their houses and go to work that are in this business are people who are doing, who were doing install work, people who do design and consultation and install work.
They're doing okay.
I don't think they're doing okay, but I think that there's still work available. If you're in the design phase of something, if you are in the quote phase, if you are in the, the sort of the commissioning phase, even at this point, you probably can still do a little bit of work. Whether there's any money for you, to get at the end of it, who knows where the economy is going to land on that. But I think those people are able to do a little bit of work. We have always shied away from that. I have a history as an electrician. I was worked with an electrical contractor for 6 years. While I was doing, audio when I was younger. So I have a background in wiring, design, big background in sound system implementation and design. And we've just always shied away from it because the business operates in the venues, and then I generally operate on the road most of the time. I tour. Right. This year, I left my house on February 15th, and with the exception of 15 days at home as the production manager for the PVD Fest, which is the big 20-stage festival in downtown Providence every year, I was on the road till December 7th. So, I aside from the business, the road, basically cleared my schedule for the year, but I can't be at home to commit to any of that install work. So, we might have a source of income, and that's definitely something that's been weighing on my mind quite substantially is that something to diversify into? Mm-hmm. I don't know. It's not really where my heart lies, and I try to keep my business where my heart lies. I think that I keep my own interest, and I'm super ADD, so I think it's best to keep my interest in it. But as far as extra revenue streams, and a little bit of security, especially in our downtimes, I've definitely been looking, at that as like, why haven't I been in that? Yeah. Whether I dive back into it or not, who knows? I do think when this picks up again, whenever that may be, I think that none of us are going to have gear left in our shops. I think that, all the production companies around here, all the production companies that tour, everyone's going to jump out of their houses as fast as possible. And I think those people that have the gear and are in a situation to not have to liquidate stuff when this is over or have the banks foreclose or what have you, I think that we're going to be seeing, premiums on gear because you're not going to be able to find anything. Right. And it'll be interesting to see. I mean, with the Sturgill tour rescheduling, the Willie Nelson Outlaw Music Festival, we were supposed to do June, September, and October this year. We had a Last Waltz tour in November, also with Blackbird, who does the Willie Nelson tour. Mm-hmm. It'll be interesting to see when those reschedule, because the faster they reschedule, the faster these artists are going to be able to get their hands on gear and buses and trucking, because it's going to be, as long as it breaks before September, it's going to be nuts. Yeah, I would think so, man. I mean, there's just going to be an onslaught of music and touring and right. It's going to be nuts. Oh, And thank God, not just from the financial. I mean, obviously, I'm partial to it. And from a financial aspect of it, but thank God just for the world. I mean, somebody had posted something the other day online about, next time you complain about money going to the arts, remember what you were listening to, watching, and doing when the quarantine happened. Right. I had a friend who was complaining. I'll make no bones about it. I'm not a Donald Trump fan. I'm a really left-leaning person. You've got to live free or die sweatshirt on, for God's sake. Well, this is from this is from the Bank of New Hampshire Pavilion. This is their swag. It's got the Bank of New Hampshire thing on the back. And, nice. My favorite piece of swag from it, if you've ever been to the venue, is the best venue in America, maybe the best venue in the world. It's a little small shed. Wow. In Guilford, New Hampshire, and they really treat everyone really well. There's oysters and lobsters and all this food for catering. Oh my God. And they have these shirts that say Last year, I think it was sex, drugs, and cases to roll. The year before that, it was sex, drugs, and lobster rolls.
That's hysterical. Wait, which venue is this?
Bank of New Hampshire Pavilion in Guilford, New Hampshire.
You know,
they have a pool. They have a pool backstage for the roadies. They have a mini golf course backstage for the roadies.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
It's unbelievable.
I'm trying to think. I had someone on the show who was describing this place to me, and they were like, "It's the most amazing place to roll up to because it's just geared toward taking care of you."
And it really is. And when they first built it, they just built it. Like a lot of people in the music business, they think that this is like Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come and forget that it's called the music business and not the music fun time party town.
Right.
And so they built the venue, and then they really took suggestions to heart. You know, they cared about the people that were coming to perform as much as they cared about the experience for the patron.
Yeah.
And it's really wonderful. So yeah, I might be wearing a Live Free or Die sweatshirt, but it's because it's my favorite venue, and it's really a soft sweatshirt too.
Yeah. Sorry,
but
I pulled you off your anti-Trump rant. That was about
no. I don't even want to say anti-Trump rant, but a friend of mine who's a sort of a fixture in the business in the Nashville music scene had said to me, the other day, he said, it's these damn liberals, and they're $25 million to the Lincoln Center, and then they go and they lay off all the orchestra, musicians or whatever after we give them $25 million. It's like, but it's the arts, that facility needs to stay open, and there's a lot more than just the players that happen. I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm touting us as a road crew, but there's janitors and there's maintenance people and there's making sure that the heat stays on or the HV stays on. So I have no problem with stimulus money going to the arts, because let's face it, right now the only thing everyone has at home, unless you're really boring and you stand there staring at a fucking tree, all you have right now is the arts.
Exactly.
So
exactly. Why do you care so much, dude? You clearly care about this industry. You clearly care about what you do. Why do you care?
When I first started working for, I'll sum it up in one little quick story. When I first started working for Gov't Mule in 2014, when I went on full time with them as their monitor engineer, we had a production manager, TJ Centrella, had been with the band for 10 years. He's now a production guy for Live Nation down in Florida. Great guy. And we were standing in Wyoming on the ski park, and we're standing on the stage that kind of like looks up the park, and everyone sits amphitheater style. And it was raining, and the truck ramp was sideways, and everyone on the road crew was complaining because it was cold, but it was the middle of the summertime, and it was probably 35 degrees, 40 degrees. And he came over and he looked at me and he goes, "This doesn't seem to be bothering you." I said, 3 years ago, I was standing in a manhole in 40-degree weather, and I bent over wearing like waders, and the water went inside of me, and it was 17 degrees outside. This is way better than that. It's a great job. The people that you meet out here are wonderful people, meet out on the road. And I'm a player. I can see a guitar in the background in your studio. You're a player. We get into this. I mean, ironically, we get into this because we love music, and I love to play. I love to perform. What I really love is to see what happens to people when that they have been diagnosed with a sickness. I've got a friend down in Long Island who was a huge Gov't Mule fan. He used to come. He was diagnosed with cancer, and his wife was dying, and he'd had a sort of an unfortunate relationship with his wife for a few years because of her alcoholism. And he would come to the Mule shows, and that was like his happy place. Yeah. And music or theater or dance or whatever it is, it helps people. It transforms people in a moment of sadness, in a moment of need. It offers some levity. It offers maybe some perspective, but it offers an escape for people. And I think that those of us who are wardens of gear, production managers, those of us who are responsible for crew, who are responsible for gear, we get it up during the day and we take it down at night to efficiently give that opportunity to people to see that stuff. And I think that I take it as an incredible responsibility, because if we don't do our job, somebody doesn't get that escape, you know, and it could be something as simple as like, man, my boss bitched at me today and I'm going to go see Sturgill and it's going to be a wild night, you know, or it could be like Justin Lasik, who's out with Sturgill Simpson, who's a Green Beret who had an unfortunate accident last year and lost both of his legs. And Sturgill's been very big with donating to the Special Forces Foundation, did a tour last fall. And he brought Justin out with us, and Justin goes on stage every night and makes a little speech about what happened to him and about how the Special Forces Foundation will raise money, you know, for families of these Gold Star families of people who've been injured and lost their lives, lost their loved ones overseas. And I think that that's important. And what other place can you do that? Can you offer hope to people, or maybe not hope, but you can offer a smile to people, 15,000 people a night. Yeah. And so that's why I care. I mean, music's great. What we do is awesome, but what we give to people, I think, is just, how do you beat that?
That's tremendous, dude. That's amazing. You've logged a lot of time with Willie Nelson and family.
A little bit, yeah.
Three, 4 years.
Yep. This will be the third year this year, yeah. We have a special coming out with him on May 12th on A&E, which will be really cool. We did a show at the Bridgestone Arena last year. Oh, cool. Which is going to be super, super hip. A lot of superstars giving their tribute to Willie, which I think is really cool. So
I hate to say I'm a recent devotee, I would say, of Lukas. I didn't really know much about Lukas, and one night I was doing something on YouTube, and it was like a suggestion on Howard Stern to see the cover he did of that Neil Young or the Crosby, Stills, Nash tune "Carry On."
Oh yeah, yeah,
I was like,
absolutely.
Holy shit, who are these guys? And then I just downloaded the recent record, turn off your TV and build a garden.
And build a garden.
Like,
yeah.
Oh my God, this is like a Tom Petty reincarnate, almost the vibe. You know, it was like, this is tremendous, man. So I've been listening to a lot of Lukas.
Luke is. I went to Australia with he opened for Mule when we went to Australia, and then came out of the Australian run and then opened for us the springtime. Yeah. And at the same time, I was also doing the Willie Nelson thing, and he was the first act of the day with them. And Luke is, as you know, I'm a recent devotee of the Nelsons in general. It's up here, country music isn't like a thing, and of course everyone knows who Willie is. But until you experience the magic of that, I think people don't really get it. But Luke is every bit as talented, every bit as friendly, every bit as warm and amazing. And this is what you have to say about the Nelsons. They're all Micah, Luka's brother. Yeah. They're just insanely warm, talented, amazing people. And all the dudes in Luke's band, Corey and Anthony and Logan and all those dudes, they're just unreal players and so dedicated to the music. And I'll say something about Lukas. That guy will work 365 days a year.
Well, it's in his blood, right? I mean, that's all he knows from his dad.
And he told me we're in a runner van in Australia, coming back from the Byron Billy Blues Festival, and we were just chatting, and he's like, this is what I know. Basically said, I mean, paraphrasing, but I grew up on a tour bus. This is what I know. Yeah. And this is what I like doing. And the guys in his group, Joel, who's his production manager, front of house engineer, is a dear friend of mine. Say the same thing. Everybody is like on it. They're just like, this is what we do, and they're so good at it, and they're so talented. Yeah, and they're such great people. They must have it down, right? I mean, they must have the whole thing down. Not just the music, obviously, but just like, again, like you said, they've been doing it for so long. It's just their own institution. Yep. Yeah, and it's like watching. It's a little bit like watching Willie Nelson and family. Like, they've been doing it for so long. A lot of those guys. Bobby Lemon's been there for 35 years. Tuner, Tommy has been there for 40 something. Bud Rock's been there for 40 something. And you see that same dedication coming from Lukas's people. And Lukas, he's experienced, I don't want to call it growing pains, but they're growing. They've been in a truck, in a bus, in the bay of a bus forever. And now they're, a bus and a box truck, and I'm sure going to a bus and semi soon. Yeah. They're just, and watching, being, not on the ground floor, but being able to watch them grow because they're so freaking talented. Yeah. They're so freaking talented and so great. And Luke is just so warm with the fans. It's just, I mean, you hit a soft spot of mine. I'm a huge Lukas Nelson fan, not just musically, but personally. Luke is just a wonderful dude. What does it
sort of take? You got them and you got Mule. Would you say that those are your two sort of most solid families that you're a part of?
Yeah, I'd say, I'm a little bit, these days I'm a little bit of a, I don't want to say mercenary because that makes me sound weird, but, I'm really in, the Lukas guys are really tight, friends of mine. The Willie guys are really, really close with, to me, and Mule for sure. I mean, I was with them for 4.5, 5 years, on and off. From 2013, I started filling in part-time and went full-time from 14 to late 2018.
And you started at monitors, right? And then you bumped up to front of house?
Well, actually, I started when I was a production rep with doing stuff with the knitting factory. I was filling in my time as a drum tech with Gov't Mule. A friend of mine who's now Warren's guitar tech was the keyboard tech. He's a Rhode Islander too, Eric Hansen. And he was like, we need a drum tech. And I was like, I don't know anything about that. He's like, you'll be fine. Come on out. So that's how I sort of met them in 2013.
Wow.
And, they were like, you're a terrible drum tech. I was like, no, but I'm a pretty okay sound guy in production, dude. And then when their monitor guy left in 2014, they called and said, hey, why don't you come on over? So then I did monitors for a couple of years and then moved over to front of house for a few years before I left. And they're talk about a band that can do anything.
Yeah.
That would be my thing about Gov't Mule. And if you're not a Gov't Mule fan, wait a minute. If you don't like what you're hearing, just wait a minute.
Yeah.
Because I used to joke and call them Coverment Mule because they're the world's greatest cover band.
Right.
But their music is phenomenal, and there's nothing those guys can't do.
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's not a song you put in front of those four dudes that they can't do solid justice to. And Haynes may be one of the best singers, certainly from a monitor front of house perspective, one of the most consistent performers anybody will ever work with. He never wavers. He can sing for 2 hours. He can sing for 27 hours, and his voice is always right there.
Wow.
And he'll go, it's not that solid, but it hits the same point on the meters every time. It sounds the same way every time. I mean, they're super, super talented and they're super fun to mix.
What's it mean? What's it like to be sort of not initiated, but we're talking about two bands, two families. Let's use that analogy. Right? Two families: the Mule family, the Nelson family, and you're in them, right? So what's it mean? What's it like to be sort of brought in? Like I know, having talked.
Well, I'm on the outskirts of them, but yeah.
Well, I mean, dude, you did monitors, front of house, tech for Mule, and a lot of stuff for Luke and Willie in that group. So you're in there. I mean, you're not a lifer 40 years, but like, Greg Looper, right? From the
I know
from
Looper,
Allman, right? And Petty, when I talked to him, when he was doing Tom, he described like, meeting Red Dog and those guys and being brought in and showed me the tattoo and, being brought into the family like that.
Yeah, it's being part of a legacy, even for a short period of time in their grand history of somebody like Gov't Mule or Willie in that regard, working on his roving festival. I feel like I got a horseshoe up my ass, and I'm really hoping it doesn't fall out. I'm really, really hoping it stays up there because I've been very lucky, man. I grew up in this little seaside town in North Kingstown, Rhode Island. And, thanks to our music teacher at our high school, we've actually had a tremendous amount of people who have gone off into the music business. We had a kid who's a couple of years younger than me that works for a lighting design firm and did some stuff for the Grammys and the American Music Awards. And another friend of mine moved to Nashville and became a lighting designer. Worked for Claire Brothers for a long time, became a lighting designer. Now has these designs on these massive tours. It's amazing that people from, our girl who grew up behind me was Hearts LD and is now, works as a tech on Pink. And it's funny to me that this little small town has bred that, but I feel incredibly lucky. And to talk about caring, I think I would take everything as a tremendous responsibility, and maybe that's why I don't sleep at night. But I used to say that I was the first line of defense between the audience and the band when I worked for Gov't Mule, and not so much live, but we put out. Are you familiar with Mule tracks?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we put out the Mule tracks every night on Nugs.net or live downloads. And Heath Robeson, who's been with Warren forever, worked in Perdinales studio and Willie's studio for a long time. Heath was on our road as our archivist, and he and I used to record the show, and then we'd sit in the back lounge every night and we'd listen to the whole show over again. And we really, when I first became the front of house guy, and we really dialed that in because we took it as a tremendous responsibility, and these things that are burned in stone, and Government Mule is, a legacy, and as much as the Allman Brothers are, and to be part of that and to have my name on that. And right before I left, we did a live DVD at the Capitol Theater. And Christopher Bargy was my monitor guy at the time, and he's out with me with Sturgill now. And Heath, we spent a lot of time just going over everything we could possibly do to make sure that we recorded that the best that we possibly can, because you're the first line of defense between the band and the audience. Yeah.
So tell me that, it's, for those folks that don't know listening, like you said, nugs.net, they offer these live shows. Basically, they have a ton of live shows out there from a lot of great bands. So so you've loaded in, you've done your thing, you've done your show, you record the show, then you got to load it all out, get on the bus and sit there when you want to go to bed, and you got to listen to it all back, same exact show. That's the process. And what are you doing back there in the back lounge? You're tweaking some sounds, tweaking some.
Well, Larry, what happens in the back lounge stays in the back lounge.
All right. Yes. Yes. Hello.
No. Heath, Slim Judd, who was the front of house engineer for the Allman Brothers, and the guy who was at front of house with Mule when I was on monitors, Slim had this little method of recording a 2-track recording where he'd take a board mix and then he'd generate a matrix of subgroups of drums and subgroups of this and subgroups of that, and then blend those back into the board mix to create a full 2-track sounding mix. Wow. The difficulty with that is that any changes you make on the board mix are disproportionately made via the matrix, because now 2 dB on the matrix doesn't relate to 2 dB against the board mix, if that makes any sense. So when I first took over, it was of the utmost importance, because of how the band viewed the importance of the Mule tracks, that we get that right. So unfortunately, at the time, it wasn't financially feasible for us to carry or to mix down every show Pro Tools. We recorded everything to a Joko Matty box, so we had multi-tracks of every show. But it wasn't feasible to put those back in and do a studio mix. So we generated it off of a 2-track. Okay. So Heath and I would go back and listen to, and make sure the tonality was right, and make sure the balance was right, and make sure, are we fixing this via mic placement? Because I'm big on mic placement and mic selection versus just wrenching knobs. And, what can we do to make this better? What can we do to make sure it's at least as good as Slim had it? And then what can we do actively to make it better? And Heath is exceptional when it comes to finding things that'll make it better. He's not a live guy, really. He was a studio assistant for a long time, but he's got a really good ear and a really good sense of, you need to do this, and he's a little blunt in his delivery. So a couple of guys who came after me to replace me didn't really appreciate his delivery, I'm sure. But he's generally right about it, and he's been with Warren for a very long time, and he knows what Warren's looking for. And as the monitor guy for a few years, my thing was always like, I know how it sounds on stage, I know how they want it to sound, so let's make it sound like that out front, and then just make it sound like that in the recording. Yeah. And it was a lot of effort. It was a lot of sitting in the back lounge and listening to songs and listening to parts and making sure, dialing in the compression correctly and dialing in everything and changing things so that balancing it against the live mix, against the recording. And I thought we did a great job. There's some shows. If anybody who's listening wants to download the Nashville 2017 show, it's awesome. And that's the one we had Jack Pearsons, who played with the Allman Brothers, play, and a bunch of guys from Blackberry Smoke come out. That guy's
awesome. Jack Pearson is awesome, man.
Jack is a monster. Jack's one of the few guys, and I'll get my head chopped off for saying this, but Jack's one of those few guys, when he's on stage with Warren, I'm trying to figure out who's a better guitar player.
Yeah,
because Jack is just a beast, man. And he's so unassuming. He just stands there, looks like he's waiting for a cab, and just shreds. Great slide player.
He does look like he's waiting for a cab. He
just chilling. Look at it.
Yeah, he is so unassuming, man. I worked on a slide documentary with him and a guy named Greg Martin, Arlen Roth. some great players. And I got to meet Jack in Nashville and sit with him and do the interview and whatnot. And then see him play live. We went back down. I premiered the movie, and they did a show. And you're right. He just stands there. He's so unassuming, and he's just like the nicest guy. And yet his hands are unbelievable, man.
Unbelievable. And he's just, to watch him. My favorite thing about working for Gov't Mule was when the band, when Danny and Warren, the keyboard player, Danny, who's brilliant. Danny Lewis is just a brilliant musician. And to watch on nights when he was firing on all cylinders and Warren was firing on all cylinders, and the two of them would just go back and forth and challenge each other. And to see Warren get into that was unreal. And Jack was always one of those guys who would come out and sit in, and instantly there was no like working up to it. It was just pedal to the metal, and the two of them were off and running. Yeah. And when at that particular show in Nashville, when you stick Charlie Starr from Blackberry Smoke in with it, and we had Steve Gorman and Audley Freed came out.
Oh my God.
And I mean, it was like, this was like a not a special stop on the tour. We just happened to be in Nashville at the Ascend Amphitheater. It was like one of those shows that is just burned into my memory for the rest of my career.
Oh my God. That's amazing,
just unreal,
man. That's so awesome. I've my Warren story, because fan of Warren, just never went down the Gov't Mule trail.
Not for everybody. Well, not for everybody.
It was really more, I don't even know what it was. It just sort of like, I just never got there, but I really got turned on to when he was playing with the Allmans and like that live album they put out in like 93, 94, something like that had, Soul Shine on there. And
was that Hitting the Note or something like that?
Not Hitting the Note. I got to, I'll look it up. And
Southbound Pachyderm? No. I don't remember, but I think I know which record you're talking about.
I'll see if I can pull it up while I tell you the story. But I did a shoot in New Jersey for a NFL player, Brandon Marshall. We wrapped out, and I went to the oh my God, I'm gonna blank on all this shit, man. Who's the famous Vince Lombardi? There's Vince Lombardi, car stop, truck stop.
Oh,
thing,
yeah.
Right?
No, know it well.
Right?
Know it well. Know the Cinnabon there really well.
Exactly. Exactly. And I'm standing in line at the Starbucks, and this woman's next to me, and this guy comes up next to her, and I'm looking at him, I'm like, dude, I think that's Warren Haynes. Holy shit. And he walked away to go to wherever he was going to go get the rest of their food. And somehow I struck up a conversation with her, and I was like, let me ask you something. That guy that was just here, I said something like, that handsome fellow that you're with or something, is that Warren? She was like, well, I don't know about being handsome, but he's a pretty damn good guitar player. And I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me right now? And he came back, and I introduced myself. This was before I did the podcast, but it was when I was doing that, the documentary. And of course he knew everybody, that I had mentioned that I was doing the documentary with, and Jack and all that kind of stuff. And I came back and put together a package of the film and the film's poster and stuff like that. And I found their address for their company in the city. I don't know if it's still there, and I sent it there. I don't know if they ever got it or not, man. But I was like, damn, I met Warren. Vince Lombardi truck stop.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man.
He's such a great dude too. He's such a warm dude. He'll, if you walk up to him, he's super receptive, and
he was
just
nice. So nice.
He may be like the Tom Hanks of the rock and roll business. He's just a super, really nice guy.
Yeah.
Great.
He just happens to have lightning in his fingers and fucking whiskey in his throat, man. The guy's amazing.
Oh man, he and his voice just gets better with age too. I mean, you listen to the stuff from the early '90s and the Mule, the live Allman stuff, is that high, almost high pitched sound into his voice, and now it's just this guttural, throaty, like he was my one thing when I left Mule in 2018 was I was like, you know what, this is gonna hurt not being able to mix this band anymore. This is gonna really hurt.
Yeah.
But
I want to jump back to we got a little bit of time here left. I want to jump back to so your origin story, as it were. And I know you started out as an apprentice electrician.
Yep.
and started working at an early audio company. Just give me the short story there of how that came about. You know, I guess you play guitar, so you know you got into this as a musician first, and why didn't you follow that track? Why'd you end up going down this track?
I was a bass player, and I played in a band, and we had a singer who was a guitar player, and somebody had to own a soundboard. Somebody has to own speakers, right? That's the story that everyone has.
Yeah.
So I had speakers and a soundboard, and just sort of fell in love with the idea of it. And I really enjoyed doing the sounds as much as I liked playing. And a guy who lived in my town, whose son went to school with my younger brother, was a sales guy for a local company called PMA in Johnson, Rhode Island, and they're still around. And he said, "Why don't you come help us doing loadouts and stuff?" So my senior year of high school, before my senior year, I jumped in and I would do ins and outs and little things for them. And I did my senior year of high school at the Community College of Rhode Island at a program they called the Running Start program. So instead of going to my high school, I went to CCRI. So I had a lot of free time because I had a college schedule. So I started working in their shop. And then I started, because I was a player and had bands, I started doing like the Bryant College homecoming field stuff. And they did a couple of festivals every year that were sort of legacy bands. And I did a couple things with them and doing some stage stuff. And, we did one show we were doing for, it was for Dennis Edwards and the Temptations Review. And the guy who was doing monitors just couldn't hang. So I ended up hopping on and doing monitors for that show. I think I was 19, 20.
Jesus.
I think I was 19. So I did that night. And then we did them a week later in somebody's front yard for their 40th birthday in Squamscott, Mass. And a different guy from the company mixed monitors at that show. And at the end of it, the front of house guy, what the hell was his name? I want to say his name was Randy. Anyway, the front of house guy came up to me and said, "Hey, the band really liked it last week. We're doing another show in, Atlantic City next week. You want to go?" And I was like, "Yeah." So I did a bunch of shows for them over the years and a couple other bands. And so I would, while I was doing the apprentice thing, I would always mix bands on Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday during the day, travel home. Did my 4 years as an apprentice. And then the economy collapsed. So I was working, part-time essentially, doing the sound stuff, but a lot of hours a week. I would, any gig I could get, even if it was driving up to Boston, driving to New Hampshire, whatever I could do, I was taking the gig. Then the economy collapsed in 2008, and I started my own electrical business with another guy, and became more and more audio. Little tours, van tours, local stuff, and then went to work at a music venue in Rhode Island at FET. And I got that job through Bennett Prescott, actually, who works for B&C Drivers, was really close with the smart people with Jamey and Karen, and the integrator was looking for somebody who knew how to use BSS software and how to use system controllers, and was a system tech, and Bennett had recommended me for the gig, and went to work there. I was there for 2.5, 3 years and met Eric Hansen, who's become a really close friend, who went to work with Gov't Mule. And then that's how I sort of spun off and back into the touring world. So
when you went to FET, did that feel like, oh, this is awesome? I've got like a regular gig, or did you miss being on the road that much?
At first it wasn't that great because I was just the sound guy, and I was working for the Field of Dreams people. I was working for the people that thought if you build a nightclub, but eventually within a few months it settled down, and there were some staff changes, and the guy who had designed the system and designed the room had kept on as the production guy moved on, and they made me the production person. They replaced the general manager of the club with somebody who was there. And then the Knitting Factory came in and started booking the place. And then it became a more solid thing. But even in that time, that was 2011. And by late 2012, early 2013, I was back on the road. I was tour managing a band called the Mystery Jets that were opening for Mumford & Son on the Babel Tour 2013.
Yep.
So I was out doing some dates with them. I couldn't stay away from a windshield, I guess is the best way to put it. But working in a venue, in a club like that, it definitely gave me a tremendous amount of experience as far as just on the agent side of things that you don't see when you're a sound guy. Right. dealing with the inner workings and the interplay of agencies and managers and stuff. So, what
do you remember? A few key things you learned during your apprenticeship in those early years from some of the older guys, especially when you're going on the weekend, like doing the Temptations review and stuff.
Oh, what I learned audio wise?
Yeah.
You mean?
Well, audio and about the life, and about how to conduct yourself.
Yeah. Working for somebody like Dennis in the Temptations review, I learned a lot about mixing monitors. I learned a tremendous amount about mixing monitors, and I learned a tremendous amount about paying attention. I also learned that you can pretty much say anything as long as you're right. We would go out and they would have 5 wedges across the front and 2 side fills, and it was the same mix. And they had 5 microphones, and we tagged them with colors, but it didn't matter because as soon as they started their routine, everyone would change microphones. Right. And I think it had to do with back in the day when you had, I'm just speculating, where you had one microphone that was like the lead microphone and they would pass that to people. So you could dial in the most beautiful mix you wanted to, and then 3 seconds later it was a catastrophe because everyone had a different microphone. So if you weren't paying attention to what was going on, and I became really quick and really fast. And then, you're playing with a pickup band musician some days, you're using local backline. I learned really fast that it was good to just tell the artist when, in a polite way, when things were fucked. And hey, you got fucked today. You're going to have a bad day. Good luck, and learning, being at a very young age, being able to develop the tact on how to deliver that news and have them thank you for it.
I was going to say, versus I'm sure they must appreciate it.
To an extent. I mean, as a monitor, I think everyone who becomes a sound guy should have to do 2 things. You should have to do a year of Celtic music, and you should have to do a year of monitors. You have to do both of those things. If you don't do that, you're not a sound guy. And anybody who's listening to this that disagrees with me, go do those 2 things, and I'll make you better. Because everything in Celtic music is very near and dear to my heart. I'm on the board of directors of this place called the Blackstone River Theater in Cumberland, Rhode Island, that does early American folk and Celtic music. And every instrument sounds exactly the same, and they're all playing the same shit.
Right.
And so you need to find the sonic seat for the accordion, the concertina, the violin, the fiddle, the flute, the low whistle, the uilleann pipes. You need to find the place where those all sit. And if you can do that, your frequency knowledge gets better. And you learn to do that fast when you're doing monitors too. Yeah. So I think you should have to do a year of Celtic music and a year of monitors. Full sail. If you're listening to this, get your head in the game.
Professor Mellor is going to come teach a course on Celtic music.
Monitors. That's where it's at.
Celtic monitors.
Yeah, I used to play bass for those guys. No,
exactly.
But I think that, there's a lot of times, we have some guys that come to work for us, as apprentices or not apprentices, as interns, I should say, or as, new engineers, and everyone wants to mix, and we'll put them in the monitor seat. And the first time they have their cell phone out, it's like, if I ever see your cell phone on this job again, you'll never work for us. Because when you're on monitors, I don't care if the band hasn't asked you. I did shows with Gov't Mule where I'd set up the desk for a week and the band wouldn't look at me. But it didn't mean that the band wasn't asking for anything. It was because you got to know the band so well, you were making all the moves that you needed to make. Right. And there's a lot of monitor guys who believe that if the band's not asking you for anything, you're fine. Well, the band may be fine, or they may be calculating how fast they can get rid of you.
Right. Right.
And so when you learn to speak to the band and be honest with the people, because they trust you. That's a solid bond. The monitor engineer and the band, that's a big bond. That's why a lot of monitor guys end up moving in front of house, because they trust the monitor guy, and on those mid-level bands. So learning how to communicate with an artist, and particular artists, and you're a psychologist up there,
Right.
And I learned that, or started to learn. I'm still learning, but I started to learn that at a very early age.
And 80 to 90% of that communication is nonverbal.
Oh, it's certainly nonverbal.
Right.
I mean, with a lot of it is just a look. Sometimes you get a yell, but a lot of times,
or a drumstick. Maybe you get a drumstick.
Or I have a funny story about a drumstick, but I got one hucked at me on a Dennis Edwards gig one time because I was looking down at the console and not looking at the band. I think that was a pickup drummer, though. I don't think that was the band's drummer. With Warren, because that was the last time I actually did a tour of duty on monitors, was working with them. But, with Haynes, it could be something as simple as grabbing his shirt behind his back meant something, or moving the microphone a certain way. And there were never any things that were discussed. It was just things that you inherently knew. He would make a move, you'd listen, you'd look at his eyes, and you go, Jesus Christ, something's wrong.
Wow.
And then, honing in, knowing what's wrong. It's a little bit easier when you're on ears because at least you have a more solid idea of what the band is hearing.
Right.
You stand if you ever get a chance to go stand up in the middle of the stage when Gov't Mule is playing and listen to those monitors on stage, man. Whew. Charlie Starr from Blackberry Smoke came off. They were opening for us. He came off one night. He goes, I don't care what I have to pay. I want that sound on my stage, because you're in the middle of it. It's just immersive. There's 11 mixers, or there was when I was there. There was 9 mixes for 4 people all over the deck. We had butt fills and all this other shit. It was,
wow.
I mean, it's something to behold.
Wow.
But it's rock and roll. I mean, it's rock and roll.
Yeah, yeah, that's fantastic. Graham, this has been phenomenal, dude. I really, really appreciate you standing outside, blustery Rhode Island day.
No.
That's gorgeous. With me.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, man. I love your podcast, and it's great.
I appreciate that, man.
You've got I feel honored to be in the leagues of some of the cats you've had on the show. So,
well, we can't leave it without giving a shout out to Mr. Jason Greenberg for making it happen.
Jason Greenberg, my own personal staffing agent. I will say, if anybody ever needs crew for anything, you just call Greenberg because he knows everybody.
Listen, between
his phone number is now. I'm kidding.
Right? Yeah, his phone number is between Nightbob and Greenberg. They've filled up my roster here, and I would just want to say, and I'm going to say this on the interview here for anybody listening, so that they know. Graham, you mentioned some great LDs and whatnot, and people. If you'd like to recommend them to be on the show, I would certainly take that, because what happens is I get a sound person and then they start referring more sound people. And then because I'm just a one-man, situation here, I'm just like going down the rabbit hole trying to get guests on the show. So it's like I'll go on this run of sound people. But ladies and gentlemen, we're all roadies in the game of life. So I want some video people. I want merch people. I want some managers. I want some LDs. Let's go. So if you got them,
yeah, I've got. I'll send you an email. I got some pretty good. I got a couple managers who would probably do it.
All right,
so
everyone's sitting around.
Definitely
right
some
now.
LDs.
They're all sitting around.
Yeah,
right
doing
now.
nothing.
Absolutely nothing. Very good, man. Well, again, I appreciate it, and I hope you remain safe.
Thank you, Larry. I really appreciate it, and thanks for having me on, man.
All right, there you have it. There it is, Graham, my man. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Let's all keep our fingers crossed for the COVID to wrap up real soon. Guys, stay tuned next week, episode 168. Woohoo! I got guitarist Chris Shiani from the Tangiers Blues Band is right here on Roadie Free Radio. During the week, you can follow us at Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify, all as Roadie Free Radio. Hey, check out the website, roadiefreeradio.com, and send me a note. You know I want to hear from you. That's info@roadiefreeradio.com. And my friends, for the love of God, in the meantime, y'all be safe out there. No roadies, no rock and roll.